Hello, this is the chapter over managing speech anxiety. Be sure that you take notes over this because a lot of this content is not from your textbook directly, but you will be required to be aware of it and quizzed for it on your midterm. So let's get started. So, first things first, the goal is not to eliminate your speech anxiety, but rather to manage it. I heard this and it's so true. It's okay to be nervous. Your goal isn't to never be nervous before a speech, before, if you play sports, before a game, before, whatever it might be. Nerves are good. That means that you care on some level. But it's so you don't want to have the goal of, oh, I just don't want to be nervous anymore before a presentation. That's it. No, but we need to manage it. Okay. So let's go over why we get anxious. Why do we get anxious before we are about to give a presentation? Well, several different reasons. Obviously, this isn't an extensive list, so you might be able to think of your own list of things or reasons why you do. But for the most part, people get anxious first because of lack of positive experience. So if any time you have spoken in front of a group, it didn't go well, that might be a reason because we might think, okay, well, it didn't go well before, so it's probably not going to go well this time. So if we haven't had a positive experience doing it, then we might be more nervous because it's always gone negatively in our eyes. Feeling different. That is a big one. And I'm not saying that we're all sheep and we all want to be the same, but there is a lot to, as humans, we need inclusion. That is a basic human interpersonal need. So, and I've even felt this when I've given presentations. You hear everybody and then you're like, oh my gosh, that was really good. My topic of my presentation is completely different. Now I feel stupid. Is it dumb? Is it boring? That was really interesting. They went a different way with it. So we don't like to feel different. Being the center of attention. That might be like, well, duh. And some people like attention, and that's fine. But a lot of times people are very uncomfortable with being the center of attention and having all eyes on them. Novelty of the speaking situation is next. So novelty meaning new. Maybe we've never been in that speaking situation before. So let's say, it's the type of speech you're going to give. So maybe you're really comfortable with giving a presentation at work and, you can do that like the back of your hand, your coworkers, but now your mom is asking you to give, kind of a celebratory presentation about your grandparents' 70th wedding anniversary. And that makes you really nervous because you've never really talked in that speaking situation. So that can be why we get nervous. And then the type of speech. Okay, so that kind of links with the example that I gave just now with the type of speech being different. Speaking situation can be even where you're giving the speech or whatever. Okay, let's move on. So identifying when our anxiety is triggered. I love this. I didn't always teach this, but I think this is so helpful for students to know because if you know this, and maybe you're all of them, right? And that's fine. But if you know when your anxiety is triggered, you can work to manage that and to be aware so that you don't fall into, a bad pattern to where you set yourself up for failure. So there's pre-preparation anxiety, as it says, where anxiety arises as soon as we find out we have to give a speech. So maybe just signing up for this class gave you anxiety. Maybe just seeing, the speeches. Maybe for your Who Am I speech, just seeing that on the course calendar, you got, that lump in your throat or, whatever. Okay. Preparation anxiety is where anxiety arises when we begin to prepare for the speech. So for your speeches in this class, you will submit your topic. So maybe that's where you start getting anxiety. Okay, maybe when you have to start thinking about a topic, that is where your anxiety comes from because you're starting to prepare for it and starting to get things together. Pre-performance anxiety arises when we rehearse our speech. So I know that might sound silly, but there is something to, yeah, cool in theory. I know that I'm going to give a speech, so whatever, I find out I have to give a speech. Okay, I'll deal with it. Preparation, okay, I'll prepare it. But sometimes it becomes very real when we rehearse our speech and when we're practicing and it's like, oh my gosh, this is happening. This is actually happening. And then performance anxiety. Anxiety arises when the speech begins. Okay. So again, like I said, you can be all of these. You can have one, you can have two, you can have three, whatever. They're not mutually exclusive. Okay. All right, self-defeating thoughts. The way you frame public speaking will likely determine the level of speech anxiety that you have. Okay, so framing is really, really powerful. The way that you think about public speaking, and I mean, you could use this for anything in life, the way that you think about it can really affect the way you approach it and how you feel about it, and then how you behave around it. So, some self defeating thoughts that we engage in, catastrophic thinking, that is where we think of the worst case scenario. So, we're like, well, it's going to go poorly because, someone's going to laugh and then the whole class is going to break out laughing at me. And then, you know, I'm going to run out crying or something, where we think of the worst case scenario. And a lot of times that doesn't happen. Perfectionist thinking, that is where there are no mistakes that are allowed to be had. So, you are expecting your presentation to be perfect. If you stumble on one word, it went terribly, and that's just not realistic. I don't care how many times you practice. I don't care, how many times you've given a presentation. A lot of time it's not going to be perfect. Desire for complete approval. So that can be, you want everyone to agree with or favor what you're saying. You want everyone to be interested. And I don't want to sound like that. Now, okay, I will say this again, but you might be surprised how interested your classmates are in your presentations. But at the same time, not everybody is interested in every single topic. We're human beings. We're not going to be interested in everything that everyone else is interested in. So that can be a self-defeating thought. And then the illusion of transparency. What that means is we get nervous thinking about the fact that people can tell that we're nervous. Okay? It makes us nervous to think about people being able to tell that we're nervous. So how do we manage this anxiety? I have a lot of tips for you. So prepare and practice, 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 practice. Oh, and practice. So it might sound silly. I know some people want to avoid practicing their speech because they're just trying to avoid it happening. But I promise you, you need to practice. If you, trying to think, if you've been in theater, just like you would do a dress rehearsal, you need to practice your speech. If you're into sports, just like you would do a scrimmage, you need to practice your speech. Put things into perspective. No one wants you to fail. It's not fun for anyone when someone gets up there and is a complete train wreck. And that does happen. It does happen. It happens in my class almost every semester, where a student gets up there and it just goes very, very, very poorly. But no one wants to see you fail. Y'all are all in this together. So it's not, no one's going to rel it. We're not hopefully you didn't have that experience in high school, but y'all, I've had some students tell me stories about high school teachers, and it gets my Italian blood boiling, because there are some people that don't need to be educators. So nothing like that is going to happen. I will not let anybody laugh at you or make fun of you. We're adults, but even if we had the one immature student who thinks this is still high school or middle school, whatever, or is just a terrible person, I'll lose it, and you won't have to worry about them. Y'all might be a little afraid of how I react, because I have absolutely no tolerance for stuff like that. Reframing. So reframing can be really powerful, again, kind of just with anything in life. But, I would challenge you, and I know y'all are going to roll your eyes when I say this, but it might help to say, I don't have to give a speech. I get to give a speech. I get to get up there and talk about something that I want to talk about. I'm not choosing your speech topics. I get nothing from that. You get to choose your speech topics, and I want you to do something you're interested in. Use coping statements. So that can be really powerful if you are extremely nervous, whether it is, I'm going to do great, I'm going to do great, whether you have to distance yourself and say you. It sounds kind of silly, but I've done that. It works better for me because it feels like someone else is talking to you, as silly as that sounds. So you're okay, or you're going to do great, you're going to get through this, it's not going to be as bad as you think. Those coping statements can really help. Visualize success. I love this one, and this is something that I still try to remind myself, not even just with public speaking, but with things in general. We always think about, okay, what if things go wrong? What am I going to do? But why don't we visualize things going right? Why don't we visualize us getting up there and absolutely killing it? Use relaxation techniques. Those can be like deep breathing. I know meditation, sorry, I lost the word there. Meditation is something that can be really, really powerful for people. So try meditating or even deep breathing. You can look, I won't, go over all of them because I don't have time, but, you can look up breathing exercises, and those can really, really help. And then I'm not going to go, just for time's sake, and it won't be on your exam, I promise. I'm not going to go over systematic desensitization. All right, a few more practical tips that I am giving you. These didn't come from a textbook, but in my years and years of experience and seeing, things go right, things go wrong. Practice your speech out loud. It is different than reading it in your mind. I don't know what it is neurologically, but it is different. It's different when you are articulating it out loud. So practice your speech out loud. It might be awkward if you want to practice for your family, your friends. I prefer to practice by myself. It might sound a little silly, but I used to go in my room, shut the door, practice out loud. For some of you, that might be more awkward. For me, I'm weird because my students practice in front of their loved ones all the time. To me, that's more awkward. I don't know why. I would rather practice by myself, but practice your speech out loud. Practice with the note cards. That way you can see how your note cards are. I'm going to go over writing note cards in the chapter over delivery to help you out with that, but practice with your note cards. Time yourself. That's really important. You want to time yourself so that you know that you're within the correct time, because you will have a time limit for all your speeches, and we don't have time for everyone to go over. Get a good night's sleep. I know y'all are sick of hearing that. You've been, doing testing since you were little, but truly, that does play a big part. Be early. That's just not for my sake. Y'all are going to learn being on time is very important to me. But you want to be early because I can tell you things happen and I get it. But anytime students have gotten there late, whether it's from traffic or they got a ticket on the way or they woke up late and had to rush, they always say that their experience was not as good because they got there and they were flustered and they were sweating, and then they had to get their note cards really quick. So be early. That way you can do those breathing exercises in your car. That way you can, listen to music and get, yourself fired up. You can check and make sure you have your note cards, you have everything you need. Wear something you are confident in. So that's a big one that might sound kind of silly, but it can get really, I don't know. I think some students can get caught up in oh my gosh, everyone's staring at me. Well, yeah, you're giving a presentation. They need to be staring at you. So I want you to wear something you're confident in. That way, even if it's just one tiny thought of, oh my gosh, they're staring at me, I want you to be like, I know I look good. You're welcome. You want me to do a spin? Yeah. Take pictures if you want. I don't mind. Okay. Don't drink too much coffee. You're already going to have the adrenaline. If you're a big coffee drinker, that is not the day to stop and go cold turkey and not drink coffee, but don't drink too much coffee. I don't want you looking like a Coke addict on your speaking day because you're already going to have your adrenaline flowing. So just do your normal routine. And then be aware of what your body does when you get nervous. Okay, that might sound kind of silly, but all of our bodies do things differently. So my voice gets kind of shaky. My hands get a little bit shaky. So some people sweat, some people, their knees will shake, some people, whatever it is. Be aware of what your body does when you get nervous, because it will happen. And that way, when it does happen, you're not freaking out like, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, oh my gosh. You'll just say, okay, there's that. Okay, I know what that is. That means I'm nervous. And then you can move on. Okay. All right, I'm not going to play this clip just for the sake of time, but basically, y'all are going to be fine. I know that you are going to do great. And even if the worst case scenario thing happens, it will be okay. I've had a lot of students do a lot of different things in speeches, and it will be okay no matter what. We are here to support you. It's okay to be nervous. Like I said at the beginning, that means that you care on some level, but just manage it. Use these tips and manage your speech anxiety, and you're going to get through it, and you're going to be great.